If someone had told me the bride everyone else rejected would be the first to see the cracks in my armor, I would have rolled my eyes. The ceremony was set for 4 o'clock sharp, and the sun over the vast Langford estate had already begun its slow descent, washing the garden in honeyed light while rows of white chairs sat untouched. Every detail had been executed with precision. Naturally, nothing less would do when the bride was the infamous Vesper Langford, media mogul, tech empress, and the coldest billionaire New Avalon had ever known. Her name alone moved stocks. Her silence could destroy careers. No one knew why she'd agreed to such a rushed, secretive wedding, especially to a woman no one had ever heard of. The tabloids were burning with speculation, but the truth was no one had seen the bride, not even Vesper, until now. Inside the mansion, the temperature felt several degrees colder than outside, though that had less to do with the air conditioning and more with the woman descending the staircase with military precision. Vesper Langford's heels clicked like gunfire against the marble steps. Tall, poised, draped in a tailored black suit instead of a dress, she looked every inch the woman who had conquered her world alone. Her hair was pulled into a sharp, controlled twist at her nape. Her lips were bloodless. Her eyes icy, focused, calculating, but for the first time in 20 years, her hands were trembling. Not visibly, God forbid, anyone saw Vesper Langford show weakness, but internally her pulse betrayed her. Her assistant, Kieran, whispered something about press protocol, about the judge arriving early, about the imported orchids in the wrong spot. She didn't hear a word. Her mind had split open the moment she heard the bride's name on the paperwork yesterday, Aria Vale. And that couldn't be possible. Aria Vale was gone. Disappeared without a trace from Vesper's life 15 years ago, leaving only silence and a trail of questions that had never stopped burning. Vesper had tried to convince herself it was a coincidence. A different Aria, a common enough name, perhaps. She hadn't even looked at the photo in the file. Wouldn't, not until today. The ceremony was unorthodox. No guests, no family, just a legal arrangement between Vesper Langford and the bride no one wanted. That was how Kieran had referred to her in hushed tones, as if she were a ghost in a pretty dress. An orphan, no assets, no connections, a legal merger, nothing more. You don't even need to talk to her, Kieran had said. Sign the paperwork, take the photos, get it done. But now, standing at the edge of the garden path with her breath locked in her throat, Vesper felt the world slow, because the woman waiting at the altar in a simple but devastatingly elegant gown of ivory satin wasn't a stranger. It was her. It was Aria. Aria with the same midnight eyes Vesper used to fall into during high school debate tournaments. Aria, with the scar above her brow, older now, softened but unmistakable. Aria, whose touch once meant everything, whose absence had left Vesper broken in places no one ever got to see. Aria, who was supposed to be dead to her. Vesper froze, literally couldn't move. Her lungs refused to expand. Her thoughts shattered. The cold, ruthless woman who had built an empire from nothing, who had taken heartbreak and turned it into ice, stood paralyzed in front of the one ghost she had never managed to bury. Aria turned, and she smiled, not shy, not sad, but calm, controlled, almost like she knew exactly what Vesper was thinking. Almost like she'd planned it. Vesper wanted to scream, to walk away, to demand answers, but the judge was speaking now. Kieran nudged her forward. Cameras clicked and Vesper walked like she was sleepwalking until she was standing inches away from the woman she had loved, had lost, had never stopped hating for leaving. The judge asked the standard question. Do you, Vesper Langford, take this woman? I do, she said automatically, voice clipped cold. Do you, Aria Vale? I do. The rings were placed. The papers were signed. A kiss wasn't required. Thank God. They turned to the camera for a final photo. Vesper didn't look at Aria. Couldn't. But Aria, she never looked away. And when the judge declared them married, Vesper realized something bone deep. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a reckoning. And Aria was here for war or revenge or something far more dangerous, because Vesper didn't believe in fate, but she believed in unfinished business. And Aria Vale had just become her wife. Vesper didn't speak a single word as the judge walked away, as the camera crews lowered their lenses, as Kieran handed her a glass of champagne with shaking fingers and a strained congratulations. She didn't speak when Aria stepped slightly closer for the final photo, placing a careful hand on her arm as if the gesture meant nothing, like it hadn't once meant everything. Vesper stood still, jaw tight, spine locked, and let it happen. The flash went off. The moment was captured. Billionaire marries mystery woman. Headlines were already forming in someone's newsroom. But the real story hadn't begun yet. It was happening now under her skin, in her veins, in the way her heart wouldn't regulate. She felt it like a scream held in the chest. Arya still hadn't said a word. Not one. And that silence was louder than anything. Your car is waiting, Kieran murmured at her side, his voice delicate, unsure. We arranged for you and your wife to be escorted to the penthouse. There's champagne dinner. A pause. Privacy. That word hit harder than the rest. Privacy. Alone with her. Arya Vale, her wife. The woman she hadn't seen in 15 years. The woman she had mourned and hated and dreamed about until her rage calcified into ambition. Fine, Vesper said flatly, and turned to walk without waiting for Arya to follow. But of course she did. Quiet as a shadow, smooth as silk. Her heels didn't make a sound on the stone. Vesper didn't look back. Not until the car door clicked shut beside her, and they were enclosed in a silence thick enough to drown in. The car began to move. The divider went up. Arya was sitting across from her now, legs crossed beneath layers of satin, hands folded like she was attending a tea party. Her eyes hadn't changed. That infuriating calm, that cool darkness, that knowing. Vesper hated that she still knew those eyes better than she knew her own reflection. So Arya said softly. One word and Vesper's chest cracked open. So Vesper echoed, voice sharp, acidic. You planned this. Define this. Don't play with me. I'm not. Arya's gaze didn't waver. I received a letter. A legal arrangement, a contract with a name I didn't expect. I accepted. You accepted without seeing who you were marrying, did you? Silence. Vesper's fists clenched in her lap. What do you want, Arya? That's a dangerous question to ask your wife on your wedding day. Don't. Vesper stopped herself, but the fury burned up her throat like bile. You left me. You disappeared. 15 years of silence and now you show up in a dress and say yes to a contract you weren't supposed to be part of. I didn't say yes to the contract. Arya's voice was too calm. I said yes to you. Vesper flinched like the words had struck her across the face. You don't get to say that. Why not? Because you're a liar. Arya tilted her head. Have I lied yet? You lied by omission. You didn't ask me anything. I didn't think I needed to. Vesper snapped. You were gone. You left. I had to bury you in my mind just to move forward. Did you? Arya's voice dropped lower, almost intimate. Move forward. Vesper looked away. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows. She hated how her body still remembered Arya's voice like a melody. Hated how every nerve in her skin was awake now, alert, alive. You have 5 seconds to explain why you're really here. 5 seconds isn't nearly enough for that kind of answer. Try. Arya leaned slightly forward. Just enough to make the air change between them. I'm here because I never stopped thinking about you. Because when the contract came, I knew it wasn't an accident. And because something told me you wouldn't walk away. You don't know me anymore. I know enough. No, you don't. You're still wearing black at your own wedding. You didn't bring family. You didn't smile once. You said I do like it tasted like blood. Vesper's heart pounded. And you? She countered. You were white like you're innocent. You smiled like you know something I don't. And you walked into this marriage like it's a game. Arya's eyes flickered. It's not a game, Vesper. Then what is it? It's a beginning. The car slowed. The penthouse loomed outside, all glass and shadow. Kieran opened the door. Arya stepped out first, her dress catching the light. Vesper followed, her chest tight, her expression unreadable. The elevator ride was silent, tense. When they stepped into the suite, Arya moved first. Unbuttoning the back of her gown slowly, like it meant nothing. Like it wasn't pulling Vesper's sanity apart thread by thread. Stop. Vesper's voice was barely audible. Arya turned, still calm. You want answers. Vesper nodded once. Then listen closely, Arya said. This marriage may be legal, but it's not simple. You think I'm here for revenge. You think I'm playing some long game, but I'm not. I'm here because you're the only unfinished part of my life. Vesper didn't breathe. Couldn't. You think you buried me? Arya whispered. But I never left. You just stopped looking. Then she stepped into the bathroom, door closing behind her, leaving Vesper standing alone in the center of the room. Heart thundering, throat burning, mind spinning. And for the first time since she'd built her empire, since she became the woman no one dared question, Vesper Langford felt unsteady. Not because she was afraid of Arya, but because she wasn't, and that terrified her more than anything. The sound of the bathroom door clicking shut echoed louder in Vesper's mind than it had any right to. She stood frozen in the middle of the penthouse suite, her tailored jacket still buttoned, her fists tight at her sides, her heart refusing to obey. She could hear the water running behind the door, soft, steady, like rain on glass. Arya was in there washing off the day, washing off the past maybe, or maybe preparing for war in silk and steam. Vesper didn't move, not until the silence pressed into her bones and forced her legs toward the liquor cabinet. She poured herself 2 fingers of bourbon and downed it without blinking. It didn't help. The burn in her throat was nothing compared to the heat spiraling in her chest. Anger, confusion, memory, too much, too fast. 15 years of silence, of imagining Arya gone forever, of rewriting her story without her. And now she was here in the next room, undressing, smiling, acting like none of it had happened. Vesper gripped the edge of the marble counter and stared at her reflection in the glass. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair still perfectly sculpted. Her face unreadable. But her eyes looked like they belonged to someone else. Someone young. Someone cracked open. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn. She didn't have to. She could feel Arya's presence in the room like a gravitational shift. The air changed when she was near. Warmer, more dangerous. You didn't change, Arya said quietly. Of course not, Vesper snapped. I'm not the one who ran. No, Arya agreed, stepping further into the room, barefoot now, wearing nothing but a silk robe that clung to her like a secret. You stayed and built an empire. What do you want, Arya? Vesper turned, her voice sharp, brittle. Tell me why you're here. Why now? Why this marriage? Arya looked at her for a long, excruciating moment. Then she sat down on the edge of the bed, legs crossed, eyes steady. Do you remember the night I left? Vesper flinched. No, liar. Silence stretched between them like a live wire. You slammed the door, Vesper whispered, hating the way the words came out small. You didn't even look back. Because if I had, Arya said, I wouldn't have left. That landed hard. Vesper felt the blow deep in her gut. Why did you? She asked, and her voice cracked for the first time in years. Arya didn't answer right away. She reached up and twisted the ring now resting on her finger. The band Vesper had slid on only hours earlier with cold hands and a colder heart. There were things I couldn't say then, Arya murmured. Things that would have ruined you. Us. You ruined us anyway. Maybe, Arya said, but I wasn't ready. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. And you, God, you were so ambitious, so sure of where you were going. I couldn't be the thing that pulled you off course. You were never a distraction, Vesper said tightly. You were the only thing that ever made sense. Arya smiled then, a small broken thing. And now. Vesper took a step closer, fire licking at the edge of her control. Now you're a stranger in my house, in my bed, in a marriage that shouldn't exist. But it does because you let it happen. So did you. Vesper stared at her. What are you doing, Arya? Reminding you who we were. We're not those people anymore, aren't we? Arya stood slowly, and for the first time that night, Vesper stepped back. Just one step. But Arya saw it. Her eyes flicked down to Vesper's shoes, then back up, sharp and knowing. You're afraid of me. I'm afraid of what you make me feel. Good. That word, low, sultry, devastating, ripped through Vesper like a blade. Arya moved closer, close enough that Vesper could see the tiny gold flecks in her irises, the faint mark of a long, healed scar, the fullness of lips she'd memorized in another life. Do you remember? Arya whispered, that summer after we graduated, your father caught us in the guest house. Don't, Vesper said, her voice thin. You wore my sweatshirt, nothing else. And you told me, stop. That if the world found out, you'd burn it all down just to keep me. Arya, did you mean it? Vesper swallowed hard. Her hands trembled. She hated her body for betraying her. Hated how her heart had never learned how to lie when Arya was near. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. I can't go back. I'm not asking you to. Arya leaned in, her lips just inches from Vesper's ear. "I'm asking if you ever stop loving me." That broke something. Vesper turned away, walking to the window, arms crossed so tightly it hurt. The city below glittered like a lie. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Behind her, Arya didn't press. She just said, "I'll sleep in the other room." And for some reason, that felt worse than if she'd stayed. Vesper waited until she heard the bedroom door close. Only then did she let herself sit, let her shoulders fall, let her heart beat like it was trying to claw out of her chest. She remembered the guest house, the summer, the promises. She remembered everything. And she didn't know what scared her more. How much she hated Arya or how much she still wanted her. Vesper woke before the sun, a habit carved into her body from years of building empires and surviving on the sharp edge of control. But today, something was different. Her sheets were tangled, her throat dry, her skin too alert, and the silence in the penthouse wasn't peaceful. It was electric. She sat up slowly, one hand braced on the mattress, the other brushing her temples. Her dreams had been fragmented, flashes of skin and memory, and Arya's voice like smoke curling through her ribs. She despised it, the way Arya still occupied the quiet corners inside her. She drifted through the penthouse like a ghost, bare feet whispering over cool marble, refusing to glance at the second bedroom door. She told herself she didn't care where Arya had slept. Told herself she wasn't listening for movement, wasn't checking her reflection to see if anything showed. The kitchen sat dim, washed in the city's soft blue glow beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. She reached for the espresso machine, fingers precise, motions mechanical, routine, control, stability, until she heard soft footsteps behind her. She didn't need to look to know. Arya still moved the same, light, assured, aware of her effect without flaunting it. "You're up early," Arya said, voice morning rough and far too intimate for the space between them. Vesper didn't turn. Old habits. Some habits are hard to break. She heard the double meaning and ignored it. "Do you want coffee?" "If you're offering, I'm being polite." "Polite looks good on you." That earned Arya the first look. Vesper turned slowly to find her in one of Vesper's shirts, oversized, soft charcoal gray, slipping off one shoulder like memory had styled it. Bare legs. Hair pulled back, messily. Out of place and perfectly at home. Vesper's pulse kicked, traitorous. "You went through my closet," she said, too sharp. Arya lifted an eyebrow. "You married me, but I can't borrow a shirt? This isn't a real marriage, is it?" Vesper clenched her jaw. "Don't play that game with me." Arya stepped closer, taking the cup Vesper offered without breaking eye contact. "You think everything's a game, but I'm here. You're here. You put a ring on my finger. Don't remind me. I don't have to. You keep looking at it." Vesper jerked her gaze away. "What are you trying to prove?" "Nothing." Sip. Pause. "Everything." Vesper turned her back again, needing space, needing air. But Arya followed quiet, patient, like she knew Vesper would crack eventually. "Do you remember the first time you kissed me?" Arya asked softly. Vesper's spine stiffened. "No liar." Vesper hated that word from her lips. It felt too intimate, too right. It was pouring rain. Arya continued. "Senior year, we were supposed to be studying for finals, but you were restless, angry. I dragged you outside and dared you to run barefoot in the grass." "You're misremembering." "No," Arya said, stepping closer until their shoulders nearly brushed. "You kissed me like the world was ending. Vesper closed her eyes, and you left like it did." That hung between them heavy and sharp. Arya sighed. "I never wanted to hurt you, but you did." "I know." Vesper turned to face her then finally fully. "So what now?" "We pretend this is normal, that we can share space without remembering everything." "No," Arya said. "We remember and maybe we deal with it." "Deal with it how?" Arya didn't answer. She just reached out, slow and deliberate, her fingers grazing Vesper's wrist. The touch was feather light, but it landed like fire. Vesper didn't pull away. Couldn't. Her breath caught. The air between them charged like a storm about to break. She felt her body betray her again. How her skin burned where Arya touched. How her heart slammed against her ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. She hated this. Hated the vulnerability. Hated how badly she still wanted. Arya leaned in slightly. Not enough to cross a line, but enough to make the space between them suffocating. "Tell me to stop," she whispered. Vesper didn't. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Arya waited, eyes locked on hers, and when the silence stretched too long, she stepped back just like that, like she hadn't just undone years of Vesper's emotional armor with one near touch. "I'll be in the study," Arya said softly, like nothing had happened. "Let me know when you're ready to talk business." And then she was gone, barefoot again, the hem of the shirt swaying as she walked away. Vesper stood frozen. Her hands still tingled. Her chest ached. And in that moment, she realized two terrifying things. 1. Arya knew exactly what she was doing. And 2. Vesper was letting her. Vesper had spent the last 24 hours pretending she wasn't unraveling. She went to meetings, signed papers, spoke to executives with her usual sharp efficiency, but none of it felt real. Every second, every breath was haunted by the memory of Arya's voice in the kitchen. The brush of her fingers on her skin, the unbearable awareness that her wife, was inside her home, her life, her space, moving quietly, watching everything. That night, Vesper came home late, deliberately hoping Arya would be asleep. But of course, she wasn't. She was in the study curled into the corner of the leather armchair reading one of Vesper's books. She looked up as Vesper walked in and for a moment neither of them spoke. The silence was sharp, fragile. Vesper exhaled slowly. "You don't have to wait up for me." "I wasn't," Arya said, setting the book down. "This room just feels familiar." "You were never in it." "Not this version," Arya agreed. "But you always said you wanted a space like this. Big windows, dark wood, silence." Vesper didn't answer. She moved to the bar, poured herself a drink, stared out the window. "Stop doing that," she said finally. "Doing what?" "Talking like you know me." "I do." "No, you knew who I was," she turned. 15 years ago. I knew who you were before you built the walls. Before the sharp suits and the silence. Don't pretend you know what I've been through." "Then tell me." That stopped her. Arya's eyes were calm, steady, but there was something underneath, something trembling. Vesper set the glass down too hard. "You don't get to ask questions." "Then why did you marry me?" "Because I didn't know it was you. And now that you do, now I want you gone." "Liar." The word landed like a slap. Vesper's chest tightened. "Stop calling me that. Then stop lying to yourself. You think you can just show up and what? Undo everything." "No." Arya stood slow and deliberate. "I think I can remind you of the truth." "You don't know what the truth is." "Then tell me what happened the night I left." Vesper's jaw clenched. "You know what happened?" "No, I know what I remember. I remember a phone call. I remember your voice. Cold and distant. I remember you telling me to disappear and never contact you again because you were going to destroy everything I had built. I was trying to protect you by walking away, by taking a fall." The room went silent. Vesper blinked. "What?" Arya stepped closer. "You never read the reports, did you?" "I buried everything." "Of course you did." Arya's voice was soft now, but sharp at the edges. "Your father's company was being investigated. Someone leaked documents. I was blamed because you leaked them." "No," Arya said, "because I found them." The room tilted. Vesper gripped the edge of the desk. "You said nothing." "I said enough to save you." "You left me." "I chose between your future and our relationship." "I chose you." Vesper shook her head. "You made that decision without me because if I told you, you would have burned everything to protect me. You don't know that." "I do." Arya stepped even closer now. "Because you loved me and I loved you and I wasn't going to let your life crash because of something your father did." "Don't bring him into this." "Why not?" "He's the reason we lost everything." Vesper's breath came fast now. Her chest was heaving. "You think I didn't suffer? You buried me." "I buried myself." She snapped. "Because I couldn't breathe without you. Because every room reminded me of you. Because I couldn't understand why the one person I trusted vanished like I never existed." Arya's expression cracked just a little. "I wrote you a letter. I never got it." "He burned it." She whispered. "Who?" "Your father." Vesper went still. "He said, if I ever contacted you again, he'd ruin you. He wasn't bluffing. You let him control you. I let him protect you." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Vesper's voice came low and dangerous. "You had no right." "Maybe not, but I made a choice." "You made the wrong one." Arya nodded slowly. "I've lived with that every day." The room was hot now, stifling. The air between them burned. Vesper's hands were shaking. She wanted to hit something. Scream. Cry. Instead, she did something much worse. She stepped forward and grabbed Aria's wrist. Not hard, not soft. Just enough. Their faces inches apart. "You don't get to rewrite history," she said, voice trembling. "You don't get to waltz back into my life with your calm voice and your stolen shirts and your sad eyes and pretend like we can fix this." "I'm not pretending," Aria said. "I'm here. You shouldn't be." And yet, she leaned in. Vesper didn't move. Couldn't. Their lips were so close it hurt. Her heart was a riot in her chest. "If you kiss me," Vesper warned, "I'll hate you more than I already do." "Then hate me," Aria whispered. And she kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't tender. It was raw, painful. Years of silence and betrayal colliding in one impossible, perfect, devastating moment. Vesper kissed back like she wanted to tear Aria apart, like she wanted to drown in her and destroy her at the same time. And when she finally pulled away, breathless, trembling, furious, she slapped her. The sound cracked through the room. Aria didn't move, just blinked slowly, lips swollen, breathing hard. "That's fair," she said. Vesper turned away, heart racing, hands shaking. "Get out," she whispered. "Get out before I do something I can't undo." Aria left quietly. No words, no glance back. And Vesper sank to the floor, every part of her breaking open. Vesper didn't sleep. She didn't even lie down. After Aria walked out, the door closing with that soft, infuriating calmness of hers, Vesper stayed on the floor, knees pulled tight to her chest, eyes burning, but dry. Her chest ached with something sharp and formless, something she refused to name. She wasn't crying. She didn't cry. Not even when the board turned on her 5 years ago. Not when her father died and left behind a legacy of secrets. Not when she signed the contract that led her here. But this night, Aria's lips, Aria's truth, Aria's silence after the slap. This had cracked something in her, and Vesper didn't know how to close it. When the light outside began to shift, bleeding gray into the dark corners of the room, she finally stood. Her muscles were stiff, her mind fogged, her hands trembling as she made her way to the bathroom. The mirror didn't lie, her skin was pale, her eyes haunted, her mouth red and raw. She touched her lips and hated the way they still felt kissed. The shower was scalding hot, but it didn't burn enough. Nothing could. She dressed in silence. Charcoal blouse, sharp trousers, a watch worth more than most people's salaries, armor piece by piece. By the time she entered the living room, the sun had fully risen, and Aria was gone, not gone, gone. Her things were still in the guest bedroom, but the apartment felt emptier, colder. Vesper walked into the kitchen expecting to see her sitting at the counter again barefoot, infuriatingly calm. But there was no trace of her, just a plate with 2 pieces of toast. One of them buttered exactly the way Vesper liked it. She stared at it for a full minute before tossing it in the trash. Kieran called at 9:07 sharp. She answered with her usual clipped tone. "Updates, you have a call with the Tokyo investors at 11 o'clock. The security team reviewed last night's footage. Everything's clear. I also sent you the updated proposal for the Vale-Langford merger." The name hit her like a punch. "Don't call it that. That's what the legal team labeled it. Change it." "Yes, ma'am." She hung up. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Vale-Langford. Like this was some romantic partnership. Like it wasn't built on lies and blood and unfinished history. She didn't work from the office that day. Instead, she paced the penthouse, pretending to review numbers, contracts, headlines, anything to keep her thoughts from circling back. But they did again and again. That kiss, that confession, that scar in Aria's voice when she said she took the fall. And the worst part, it made sense. Every bit of it. Her father, the investigation, the silence, the missing letter. Aria hadn't betrayed her. She'd sacrificed her. And Vesper, blinded by pain, pride, ambition, had let her. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she passed by the guest room, paused. The door was slightly open. She told herself not to look. Told herself it didn't matter. But she looked. Aria's bag sat in the corner, half-zipped. A pair of flats neatly aligned. A paperback on the nightstand with a dog-eared page. And on the dresser, one of Vesper's old t-shirts. Not stolen, folded, left out, deliberate. A memory hit her like a truck. Aria, 17, sprawled on her dorm bed in that same shirt, laughing with a mouthful of gummy bears, asking if Vesper ever stopped thinking. "Not if I can help it," Vesper had muttered, burying her face in Arya's shoulder. Good, Arya had whispered. Keep thinking. I'll keep you soft. The breath caught in her throat. She slammed the door shut. That night, Arya didn't return. Not to the kitchen, not to the study, not to her. Vesper lay awake in her king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling like it might offer answers. None came. The next morning, there was no toast, no coffee, just silence, and something about Arya finally giving her space made Vesper feel like she was suffocating. She dressed slower that day, her hair not quite perfect, her eyeliner not quite straight. She didn't speak to anyone until noon when Kieran entered her private office with a strange expression. There's something you should see. He handed her a tablet, a video. Vesper pressed play. It was footage from the Langford Foundation Gala 3 years ago. She hadn't watched the media reels back then. Too busy managing PR disasters and controlling board damage. But now watching it, she saw it in the crowd. A woman. In the back row, hair darker, skin more tanned, eyes locked on her. Arya, she was there watching her and she never said a word. How long have you had this? Vesper asked, voice low. It surfaced this morning, Kieran said. Apparently, a paparazzi reel got leaked on social media and someone tagged her. Who else has seen it? Only us so far. Vesper closed the tablet. Her pulse was a thunderstorm. Schedule a press blackout already done. When he left, she stared at the door. Arya had been watching her long before this marriage. She had been close, present, and said nothing that night. When Vesper returned to the penthouse, Arya was there, sitting on the balcony, barefoot again, hair loose, staring at the skyline like it held all their answers. Vesper stepped outside, heart pounding. Arya turned. Their eyes met. You knew. Vesper said. Arya didn't deny it. I watched you become everything we used to dream about. Why didn't you say something? Because I wasn't ready. And now I'm here. Vesper didn't know if it was relief or fury that gripped her chest. But she said nothing more. Just stood there breathing in the city. And next to her, Arya whispered, you looked beautiful that night. Vesper closed her eyes and hated how much it meant to hear it. It started with rain. Not just the casual drizzle New Avalon was known for in late spring, but a downpour that painted the skyline in streaks of silver and thunder. Vesper stood in the kitchen, the lights low, the city blurred behind floor-to-ceiling windows, her fingers wrapped loosely around a glass of wine she hadn't touched. The storm outside matched the one inside her, quiet and steady, too controlled to be seen, but not to be felt. She didn't expect Arya to join her. After the balcony moment, after the quiet acknowledgement that Arya had watched her for years without speaking, Vesper had retreated into herself again, too afraid of what she might say if she stayed near her. But now, as the sky cracked open with lightning, she heard soft footsteps behind her and knew it was Arya. She didn't turn, couldn't. I always loved the rain, Arya said softly, her voice almost lost in the thunder. You used to say it made you feel like everything could start over. Vesper's throat tightened. That was a long time ago. Maybe, but you still watch it the same way. What way is that? Like you're hoping it'll wash something away. Vesper turned then slowly and met her eyes. Arya stood barefoot again, wearing a loose sweater that hung off one shoulder and a pair of leggings that made her look like she belonged here, like she'd never left. Her hair was damp at the ends, her face clean, stripped of armor. Vesper hated how beautiful she still was. How familiar. I'm not the same girl, Vesper said. I know. I don't watch the rain for hope. I watch it because it reminds me that control is an illusion. Arya nodded slowly. That sounds like you. Vesper turned back to the window. Why are you really here, Arya? You know why? Tell me anyway. Arya stepped closer, her voice low. Because I couldn't keep pretending you didn't matter. Because I got tired of being a ghost in your past. Because I still dream about you. Vesper closed her eyes. You shouldn't. I know. A long silence passed between them, filled only by the rain. Then softly, Arya asked, did you ever love anyone after me? Vesper didn't answer right away. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. I tried. And they weren't you. That truth left her exposed in a way that made her skin feel raw. She braced herself for Arya's reaction, but it never came. Just a breath, a quiet acknowledgement. Then Arya reached out and took the glass from her hand, setting it down on the counter. Her fingers brushed against Vesper's just to graze, but it was enough to light a fire under her skin. You should eat something, Arya said gently. You haven't eaten all day. I'm not hungry. You need to take care of yourself. Don't act like you care, but I do. Vesper turned to face her fully. Something dangerous in her eyes. Why? Why? After all this time, after everything you destroyed, Arya's expression cracked, pain flickering through her features. Because I never stopped loving you. The words hit like thunder. Vesper staggered back a step, breath caught in her throat. You don't get to say that now. I know, but it's still true. Then why did you wait so long? Arya looked down. Because I didn't know how to come back. Because I thought you'd moved on. Because I was scared that if I saw you again, I'd fall apart. Vesper felt something shift in her. A crack in the armor she'd spent years perfecting. She stepped closer, her voice low and shaky. And now Arya looked up, eyes shining. Now I don't care if I fall apart. Vesper didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was both of them. But suddenly they were closer, inches apart, the rain pounding against the glass behind them, the air between them thick with everything unsaid. Arya reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind Vesper's ear. The touch was feather-light, reverent, like she was handling something sacred. Vesper's breath caught. Her heart slammed against her ribs. This doesn't fix anything, she said. I know. It doesn't erase the pain. No, and I still don't trust you. You don't have to. Arya's voice dropped to a whisper. Just let me be near you. Vesper closed her eyes, her defenses shattering in silence. And then slowly, she let Arya pull her into an embrace. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't even romantic. It was quiet, soft, devastating. Two bodies fitting together out of instinct, out of memory, out of something too deep to name. Vesper buried her face in Arya's neck and let herself breathe her in. Let herself remember what it felt like to be held, to be safe, to be known. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in silence and stormlight, the world outside blurring into nothing. Eventually, Arya whispered, "Do you want me to stay in the guest room tonight?" Vesper didn't answer, just pulled her closer. Vesper didn't know what she expected when she woke up. Maybe distance, regret, that familiar wall of silence she'd spent years building, solid and cold, and always within reach. But when she opened her eyes, she was still wrapped in warmth, in breath, in Arya. The sheets barely separated them. Their legs were tangled. Arya's arm was draped over her waist like it belonged there, like it had never stopped. And Vesper, God help her, hadn't moved. Her body was relaxed in a way it hadn't been in years. Her mind quiet for once, her heartbeat slow, steady, betraying everything she pretended to be. She didn't open her eyes right away. She stayed in that liminal space, suspended between memory and morning, where nothing had broken yet. Arya shifted slightly, her breath brushing against Vesper's neck. The scent of her clean skin, something floral and faintly sweet, wrapped around her like gravity. Then her voice, low and still laced with sleep. You always woke up first. Vesper's eyes opened. Only because you always stole the blankets. Arya chuckled softly. I had to survive somehow. Vesper turned slowly, meeting her eyes. The moment felt delicate, almost sacred, one wrong move and it would splinter. Did you sleep? She asked. Arya nodded. Better than I have in a long time. Vesper had no idea what to do with that, any of it. The closeness, the ease, the way her body leaned toward Arya without permission. I should get up, she said, but she didn't move. You could stay 5 more minutes. That sounds dangerous. Only if you're afraid of remembering. I'm afraid of forgetting, Vesper said quietly, forgetting why I locked this part of myself away. Arya's hand slid, unhurried, to rest lightly on Vesper's hip. Not possessive, not demanding, just there. A reminder. You haven't forgotten, she whispered. Not really. Vesper closed her eyes again. Tell me something true, she said. Something real? Something I don't already know. Arya went quiet. Then, in a voice so soft it felt like a secret, she said, the night I left, I stood outside your building for 3 hours. I didn't want to go. I kept hoping you'd come down, that you'd chase me, that we'd fight and cry and fall apart together instead of me doing it alone. Vesper's throat tightened. I never saw you. I know. Your father had already told me I wasn't welcome, but I waited anyway. And then I got in a cab. I went to the bus station. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to disappear. Vesper opened her eyes. Why didn't you call? Because I knew if I heard your voice, I wouldn't have been strong enough to leave. You think it was strong leaving at the time? Yes. And now I think it was cowardice disguised as sacrifice. Vesper stared at her. Arya looked tired beneath the softness. Not physically, soul tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying the weight of what-ifs for too long. I tried to hate you, Vesper whispered. Every day for years. Did it work? Only on the days I missed you the most. Arya didn't respond. She just shifted closer, her fingers brushing a loose strand of hair from Vesper's face. The touch so gentle it felt like apology. Vesper's breath caught. The room was too quiet, too full of everything. She sat up suddenly, swinging her legs over the edge of the bed, grounding herself in movement. I need coffee. I'll make it. You don't have to. I want to. Vesper didn't stop her. She sat in the silence Arya left behind, her body still humming with memory. 20 minutes later, Arya returned with 2 cups, one black, one with a dash of oat milk and exactly 1 sugar. The way Vesper liked it. She took it without a word. You remembered. I never forgot. They drank in silence. Not tense. Not quite comfortable either. Something in between. When Vesper set her cup down, she looked at Arya and said, "Do you remember the lake house?" Arya smiled faintly. The summer after graduation. Vesper nodded. You spent half the trip trying to fix that broken dock. You watched me for hours and never offered to help. I was 17 and obsessed with your arms. Arya laughed, then real open warm and Vesper's chest cracked. I think that was the last time I was happy without guilt. Vesper said. Arya's smile faded. I want that for you again. It's too late. It doesn't have to be. Vesper looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw not the girl who left, but the woman who came back. And she didn't know what scared her more, how much she wanted to forgive, or how much she already had. But before she could say anything, a sharp chime cut through the room. Vesper's phone lit up. Unknown number, 1 word on the screen. Confession, she answered, a distorted voice, electronic and untraceable. Does she know what your father did to mine? Vesper froze. Who is this? The line went dead. Silence. Arya stared at her. Vesper, but she couldn't speak because the past wasn't done with them yet, and someone else had just entered the game. Vesper stared at the phone in her hand long after the screen went black, her breath shallow, her mind spinning. The voice hadn't sounded familiar. It had been distorted, masked, robotic. But the words had cut deep, sharp, and deliberate. Does she know what your father did to mine? It wasn't a threat. It was a warning, a reminder, a promise. Arya stepped closer, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. Vesper, she said gently. What was that? Vesper forced her features into composure, slipping the phone into her pocket like it hadn't just shattered her morning. Wrong number. Arya didn't buy it. You froze. It startled me. That's all. You're lying. You're imagining things. Arya folded her arms. If something's wrong, I deserve to know. Why? Because we shared a bed. Because I'm your wife. The word struck like a match. Vesper looked away. You're a name on a contract. That's not what you said last night. Last night was a mistake. The words tasted bitter. But she said them anyway. Because if Arya asked the wrong questions, if she started digging, there were things she could never be allowed to find. Things Vesper had spent years burying. Arya didn't press, but her silence spoke volumes. She walked to the balcony, leaving Vesper alone with the weight of what had just happened. Her hands trembled. She clenched them into fists, controlled her breathing, focused, compartmentalized. That was how she survived. That was how she won. She replayed the message in her mind. Does she know what your father did to mine? It wasn't just an attack. It was personal, intimate. Whoever made that call knew exactly who Arya was. Knew what Vesper stood to lose, and that terrified her more than anything. She needed answers. Quietly, she slipped into her study and locked the door, sat at her desk, activated the encrypted console hidden in the drawer. Within seconds, her private network came alive. She typed in a single name, Rafael Rojas, her father's former CFO, a man who disappeared the same year Arya left. Rumors said he fled the country, that he was silenced, that he knew too much. But Vesper remembered the whispers, the accusations, the evidence that vanished. Her father's cold eyes when she asked questions. She ran a search. No activity, no known relatives. But a daughter. Amaya Rojas, born the same year as Aria, attended private school in Northvale, New York, graduated from Blackstone, changed her last name after her father's disappearance. Now living in New Avalon, a picture loaded, Vesper's blood ran cold, dark hair, sharp jaw, calculating eyes. She'd seen her before, at the gala, at a board meeting, at a charity event. Always in the background, always watching. She hadn't recognized her then, but now she couldn't unsee it. Amaya Rojas had been orbiting her life for years, waiting, watching. Vesper leaned back in her chair, breath unsteady. This wasn't about revenge. This was about exposure, destruction. Someone wanted to burn everything she'd built, starting with the one thing she hadn't planned for. Aria. A knock at the door. Vesper. Aria's voice, soft but worried. Can we talk? Vesper hesitated, then composed herself, deactivated the console, and opened the door. Is everything okay? Aria asked. Vesper nodded. Just work. Aria studied her. You look pale. I'm fine. You're lying again. Let it go. Aria didn't. She stepped closer, searching her face. What are you afraid I'll find? Nothing. You flinch when I mention your father. You shut down every time we talk about the past. And now you're acting like you've seen a ghost. Maybe I have. Then tell me what it is. No. Why not? Because it will change everything. Aria's voice dropped. Then maybe it needs to. Vesper shook her head. You think you know me, but you don't. You never saw what it took to build this life. I saw you fight. I saw you sacrifice. You saw what I let you see. Aria reached out, fingers grazing Vesper's arm. I'm not afraid of the truth. You should be. Their eyes locked. Vesper's defenses were fraying. She felt it. The unraveling, the slow descent, the part of her that wanted to scream, to confess, to be held. But there was too much at stake. So she did what she always did. She retreated. I have a meeting, she said coldly. We'll talk later. Vesper, drop it. And then she walked away, heels echoing through the silence. But hours later, back at the office, she found a note on her desk, handwritten, no signature, just a single sentence in careful cursive. Secrets buried with the dead don't stay buried forever. She crumpled it in her fist, but the words burned anyway. That night, Aria wasn't home. Vesper waited. Paced. Called nothing. Midnight came and went. At 10:04 a.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number, one photo. Aria alone, standing in front of Rafael Rojas's old apartment building. The message. How much longer until she knows? Vesper's heart stopped because now it wasn't a threat. It was a countdown. Vesper didn't sleep. She couldn't. She sat in the darkened living room, the only light coming from the skyline beyond the windows. Her phone clutched in her hand. The image of Aria standing in front of Rafael Rojas's building burned into her mind. Her pulse hadn't settled in hours. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Aria in danger. Aria finding out everything. Aria walking away again, but for good this time. She replayed the message over and over. How much longer until she knows? It wasn't a question. It was a warning. She felt it like a rope tightening around her neck. When the door finally opened at 2:47 a.m., Vesper stood so fast she nearly knocked over the glass on the table. Aria stepped inside quietly, soaked from the rain, her hair clinging to her neck, eyes shadowed with something dark and unreadable. Vesper didn't speak. She couldn't. Aria shut the door and leaned against it like she needed the support. Are you going to tell me why someone sent me to that building? Her voice wasn't angry. It was hollow. That was worse. Vesper tried to breathe. It's not safe. No, Aria said, stepping forward. What's not safe is being married to someone who lies to my face while the world around us falls apart. I'm protecting you from what? Vesper hesitated. From the truth. Then we have a problem. Aria, don't say my name like that. Her voice cracked. Don't say it like it still means something if you won't even trust me. I do trust you. Then tell me why that building matters. Why someone is watching me. Why you've been acting like I'm going to shatter if I get too close to whatever this is. Vesper's jaw clenched. Her hands trembled at her sides. Because if you know what I know, you'll hate me. Try me. Vesper turned away, pressing her fingers to her temples, fighting the spiral building in her chest. My father wasn't who you thought he was. You don't have to protect his legacy. I'm not. She turned back, eyes burning. I'm protecting you from the fallout. Vesper, talk to me. Rafael Rojas, she whispered. The man whose building you were at. He worked for my father, CFO. Brilliant, loyal, honest. Until he wasn't. Arya frowned. What happened? He discovered something. Fraud, bribery, a trail of illegal transactions buried deep in the company's infrastructure. He was going to expose it and he disappeared. Arya's breath caught. Disappeared. Vesper nodded. No one ever found his body. No official investigation. My father made sure of it. You think he had him killed? I think Raphael knew he wouldn't survive what he'd uncovered. Arya stared at her, eyes wide. That's what you've been hiding. Vesper swallowed hard. His daughter is the one sending the messages. She's threatening you. She's threatening us. Arya stepped back like she'd been struck. Us? She sent me a photo of you. Said I had a countdown. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to drag you into it. I'm already in it, Vesper. Her voice broke. You should have told me the second started. And risk losing you again? You're losing me now by keeping me in the dark? I was trying to protect you. I don't need your protection. Arya shouted. The silence that followed was suffocating. Vesper's voice was barely a whisper. I do. Arya froze. Vesper stepped closer, her composure cracking, the cracks running deep now, raw and exposed. You're the only person who makes me feel like I'm not drowning. Arya's eyes softened, but her voice was still sharp. Then why do you keep pushing me away? Because every time I look at you, I remember who I used to be. And I don't know if I can survive losing her again. Arya's expression shattered. She stepped forward, closed the distance, her hands trembling as she reached for Vesper's face, then stopped trying to survive and start choosing me. Vesper leaned in before she could think, could stop herself, and their mouths met like fire and forgiveness. This kiss wasn't like the first. It wasn't rage or punishment. It was desperation. It was memory clawing its way back into the present. It was years of silence melting into heat and longing and something terrifyingly close to hope. Arya pushed her back gently until they collided with the nearest wall. Hands slipping under Vesper's blazer, pushing it off, breaking through every layer of armor. Vesper let her. She let herself be kissed, touched, seen. Her hands gripped Arya's hips like they were lifelines. Their breaths came fast. Their bodies pressed closer. The heat between them was impossible to ignore. But just as Arya's hands slid under her shirt, Vesper stopped, pulled back, breathing hard. We can't. Why? Because if we do this, I won't be able to let you go again. Arya's voice was low. Rough. Maybe you're not supposed to. Vesper stared at her, torn open, undone, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel powerful. She felt human. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. If this all falls apart, don't let me become like him. Arya's eyes shone with tears. She reached up and kissed her forehead, soft, reverent. You're nothing like him. Vesper let her forehead rest against Arya's heart pounding. You make me want to believe that, then believe it. And just like that, they stood in the quiet, not fixed, not whole, but together. And neither of them saw the email that had just landed in Vesper's inbox from Amaya Rojas. Subject line: public statement draft attached. And the clock kept ticking. Vesper found the email at 3:12 a.m., her inbox glowing faintly in the darkroom. As if the screen itself knew the weight of what it contained. The subject line was simple, direct: public statement draft attached. No greeting, no signature, no threats, just a PDF file, and the implication that everything she had fought to keep buried was about to surface. She hesitated only a moment before opening it. Her breath caught as her eyes moved across the text. It was formatted like an official press release. Elegant, clean, deadly. Langford Empire built on blood, uncovering the disappearance of Rafael Rojas. The first paragraph detailed her father's hidden accounts, the missing audit trails, the internal silencing of whistleblowers. The second paragraph named Rafael. The third named her Vesper Langford, heiress, billionaire, current CEO. Not directly guilty, the draft stated, but complicit by inheritance, protected by silence, built on shadows. And then came the final line. Chilling in its restraint. How long will the world continue to celebrate power built over a grave? Vesper's hands were cold. Her heart thundered in her chest. Not from fear, but from the truth of it, because they weren't lies. Not really, not entirely. The statements were carefully worded, impossible to deny without dragging more secrets into the light. And Amaya Rojas had written it like someone who understood the system from the inside, because she did. Vesper closed the file and pressed her hands against her face. She had maybe hours a day if Amaya was feeling generous. And Aria was still asleep down the hall, tangled in sheets that smelled like trust and memory and things Vesper didn't deserve. The weight of the past pressed against her spine. She stood and paced the room like a caged animal, trying to think, to plan, to find an exit. But the door was closing and she was running out of time. At 6:02 a.m., she made coffee she wouldn't drink. At 6:14, Aria appeared in the doorway, sleepy-eyed, hair messy, skin glowing in the pale dawn. "You're up early," she said, voice soft. Vesper forced a smile. "Have it. You're pale. Coffee helps." "Does it?" Aria stepped into the room, her gaze narrowing slightly. "You're tense." "I'm always tense." "No," she said gently. "This is different." Vesper didn't respond. Aria moved closer, placed a hand over hers on the counter. "Talk to me." "I can't." "You already did." "Not all of it." "Then tell me the rest." "You don't want to know." "Let me decide that." Vesper pulled her hand back slowly. "There's a file, a draft. Amaya wrote it. She's ready to go public." Aria stilled. "With what?" "Everything. Your father." "Yes. You." Vesper hesitated indirectly. "That's not a no. She doesn't need to lie. The truth is damaging enough." "Show me." "Aria now." Vesper retrieved the tablet, opened the file, and handed it over. Aria read in silence, her expression unreadable. Her fingers trembled only once. When she reached the paragraph with Vesper's name. When she finished, she looked up and the silence between them was sharper than a scream. "Did you know?" "Not at first, but eventually." "Yes. And you said nothing." "What could I say?" "The truth. And destroy the company, the employees, everything built from the ashes. Built from the ashes of a man who tried to protect people. I was 18 when it happened. I was told Raphael was dangerous. I believed it. By the time I learned the truth, it was too late." Aria's voice dropped. "You could have said something. I didn't have proof. You had his daughter watching you for years. And I tried to keep you out of it. I'm not a child, Vesper." "No. You're everything I can't lose." The words stopped Aria cold. "That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. You kept this from me because I knew if you saw it, you'd walk away." And now Vesper stepped closer, eyes full of something she hadn't let surface until now. "Now I won't stop you." Aria searched her face. "What are you saying?" "I'll resign today. Step down from everything. Give Amaya what she wants. And the company, the legacy, whatever it takes. If it means you're safe." Aria's voice broke. "Don't do that." "Why not?" "Because it's not just your legacy anymore. It's ours. Not if this destroys you. I survived losing you once. I won't survive it again." "Then what do we do?" Aria was silent for a long beat before answering. "We fight smart. Together. It's the only way we win." And before either of them could rethink it, Aria leaned in and kissed her again, nothing frantic or broken, just steady, fierce, sure. When they parted, Vesper breathed, "Even if this destroys everything, we go down knowing we chose each other." A soft chime cut through the moment. A new message, no longer anonymous, landed in Vesper's inbox. From Amaya Rojas, "I'd like to meet in 1 hour. Bring her." A pin was attached. A small downtown cafe. Neutral. Public. Dangerous. Vesper met Aria's eyes. "It's her." Aria didn't blink. "Then let's go." The cafe was almost aggressively ordinary. Tucked on a quiet corner in downtown New Avalon, it looked like any place where strangers nursed silent breakfasts and baristas misspelled names out of habit. For Vesper, though, the air felt heavy, warped by the past pressing against her ribs. She and Aria entered together, the bell over the door chiming lightly as they stepped inside. Neither spoke. Aria walked beside her, fingers brushing Vesper's for an instant, as if to say, "I'm here." Vesper clung to that more tightly than to her own breath. Amaya Rojas was already seated, back corner table, alone. No security detail, no theatrics, just a woman with keen eyes, black hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, a tablet resting between her hands like a blade. She looked up as they approached, her gaze sliding past Vesper and locking on Aria. Not curious, precise, like a sniper choosing a mark. You brought her, Amaya said, voice smooth, even. I wasn't sure you would. Vesper remained standing. You asked for both of us, and we obeyed. Amaya indicated the two empty chairs across from her. Please. Let's be civilized. Arya sat first. Come. Controlled, but her eyes were alert. Vesper followed, her pulse loud in her ears. Amaya didn't speak for a moment. She just watched them. Then she said, You loved him. Vesper blinked. What? Your father? You loved him. I didn't know him and I lost mine because of him. Arya leaned forward slightly. Why am I here, Amaya? Amaya's eyes flicked to hers. Because I wanted you to see what love built on lies looks like. Vesper's hand curled into a fist under the table. If you came for revenge, say it. I came for justice. You call it revenge because you think I want blood. I don't. Then what do you want? A choice. Amaya unlocked her tablet, rotated it, and slid it across the table toward Vesper. A folder was open. Dozens of files, photos, scans, emails, audio recordings. This is everything your father tried to erase. Everything Raphael risked his life to bring forward. I've been collecting it for 15 years. It's enough to bury Langford Industries, dissolve every board, revoke every license, destroy every investor tied to the company, and you. Vesper didn't flinch. Then do it. Arya turned sharply. If you want to release it, do it now. Amaya's smile was thin. Not without a choice. I'm not your father. I don't take power, I offer it. Step down. Dissolve the company. Name what he did. Do it on camera, and I destroy the files. You'll still lose, but with dignity. Arya's voice tightened. And if she refuses? I release everything, to press, courts, regulators. But first to you, Arya, so you see who she is. That's why I'm here, Amaya said. You deserve to know the woman you married. I already do, Arya said. Do you? Amaya asked Vesper. You think love survives this fire? She's stronger than you think, Vesper said. And I'm not him. I'm here, ready to pay for sins I didn't commit. Amaya's eyes flickered. Then make the statement. Not today. Why? It will be in my words. 48 hours. 24. Choose carefully. Amaya left, swallowed by rain. They sat in quiet. Are you going to do it? Arya asked. I have to. Then I'm with you. At her glass desk, Vesper faced a blank page. Arya brought tea and closed laptop. Start with the truth. Say it out loud. He wasn't a good man, Vesper said. He built something powerful, never clean. When people got in his way, he erased them. And you? I inherited the rot. I tried to bleach it. At 18, when Raphael disappeared, I believed my father. Later I found files. Raphael had uncovered everything. My father knew. Then he was gone. I buried it. I'm done burying. Arya squeezed her hand. Then we burn with dignity. Vesper wrote through the storm. I was raised by power and silence, she typed. For too long, I mistook them for protection. That's it, Arya said, cameras rolled. In a black suit, Vesper faced lights. My name is Vesper Langford. You know me as a CEO. Today, hear the weight I've carried. Rafael Rojas wasn't a traitor. He tried to do right. My father silenced him, and I did nothing. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down. The company will be dissolved. Assets placed in a trust for whistleblowers and ethics reform. All buried files go to federal investigators. This isn't a rebrand. It's accountability. Backstage, she folded into Arya's arms. A courier brought a letter. There's one more secret you haven't uncovered, an address, Uptown. Evelyn Hart waited. I was your father's attorney. He adopted you at birth. Your mother was Catherine Rojas. Raphael was your uncle. He fought for you. Vesper's world tilted. All this time, we were family. We have to tell Amaya, Arya said. They met at a cafe. Amaya read, tears rimmed. He never told me. I don't want war, Vesper said. Neither do I. They embraced weeks later, in an abandoned greenhouse. Arya asked, why here? Because nothing grew here. I want to change that. What are we planting? Vesper pressed a key into her palm. Whatever we want, together. And world went quiet.